Hey, everybody, that was a heavy practice with which to go into an interview. And it's also really interesting to me that we did a writing meditation on this day when we're going to be talking with someone who is a wonderful writer herself and someone who has made it possible for the writings of many, many other people, including myself, to be out in the world. So I am so very grateful that today we're going to be talking with not only somebody that I admire immensely, but somebody to whom I feel I owe really all my work in the world. So any good that I have ever done or am able to do would not have happened were it not for Patti Breitman. So I'm just tickled to introduce you to one of my favorite people on earth. Welcome from maybe sunny Northern California, Patti Breitman.
Okay, I'm happy to do this only by audio.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and that is so you, because you are a genuinely humble person, and that's part of what's cool about you. So tell us how your vegan journey began.
Ooh, my vegan journey began when I was the editor at Warner Books in New York City back in 1984 or 5 of a book called Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. And what Harvey said in that book, I'll never forget. He said, if you put a baby in a crib with an apple and a rabbit, if the baby eats the rabbit and plays with the apple, I'll buy you a new car. And he made me realize that naturally we are inclined to love and take care of animals and to eat beautiful fruit. So that got me started. And then when I moved to California, 2 years after that, in 1986, everyone said, why are you still eating dairy? Why are you still eating eggs? And I said, oh my God, I made the largest change of my life. I pissed off my family and friends. I can't believe it's not enough. Why should I give up eggs and dairy? And then I read John Robbins' book, Diet for a New America. And within 24 hours, I gave up milk and dairy, and I've never gone back.
That's beautiful. So your initial entree into this was through a health book and the health message. And sometimes there's a conflict, ethical vegans and health vegans or plant-based people. So how can we all just love each other up and be one wonderful movement that helps everybody?
Well, Victoria, you're my champion in that field because I get involved in the politics among vegans about all of the lab meat, lab-grown meat, and techno meat that's made in a factory. And you keep my head on straight by reminding me when all of that comes up and all the two camps get their boxing gloves on and say, that's not natural, that's not real, that's not good for us. That you remind us that it's all about the animals, it's not about us. And if it saves animal lives and people want to buy the techno food or they want to buy the non-GMO safe foods and they want to buy all the new stuff, it's still helping animals. So keeping that perspective is what, oh, there I am.
There you
now
are.
I see my video. Anyway, you remind me to keep the larger picture and to always think of the animals.
Well, I could say the same thing about you. So since we are a spiritual center, let's talk about religion. When I met you, you were Jewish and you still are, but now you are also Buddhist. So how do you honor both and practice both?
It's interesting that the people who brought Buddhism to the West are primarily, the vast majority of those who brought it to the West in the 60s and 70s are Jewish. Their names are Sylvia Boorstein, Jack Kornfield, I can't remember all. Anyway, dozens of Jewish people found an affinity with Buddhism, and I understand why, because both religions encourage us to ask questions, not to take on faith what somebody else told us. Jews are famous for always exploring why and looking at all the rabbis arguing all the points, and Jewish families can argue forever the same points. And Buddhism says, don't believe anybody, see if it works for you. Be your own best teacher. The Buddha tried to teach principles of living ethically, and he said, don't take my word for it. See if it improves your life if you follow my advice. So I think those two religions are very compatible. And I really don't think of myself as a Buddhist. Someone who follows the Buddhist teachings. I guess that's called a Buddhist, but I don't think there's a religion. I think of it more as a guideline for how to live one's life ethically.
So how do you do this? Tell us about your spiritual life and your spiritual practice.
I belong to a wonderful Sangha, which is a group of people like you, like the Compassion Consortium, a beautiful group of people who meet once a week to learn more about the Buddhist teachings. That's the Marin Sangha. Some of my friends from that Sangha are on today's call. And that is a beautiful way to stay connected in community and to learn more about the Buddhist teachings. And I have a daily practice of meditation, which started with transcendental meditation back in the 70s. But since I discovered the Buddhist path, has changed to what's called insight meditation. And I do that almost every day. As far as Judaism goes, it's more of a cultural thing, in that I still eat my grandmother's food. I celebrate most of the major Jewish religions. I consider myself Jewish. And whenever my relatives has a bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, or a wedding, I love partaking in the celebrations that are traditionally Jewish. The prayers and the dancing and the singing and the crushing of the glass. I just love all the traditions that go with Judaism.
That's beautiful. So tell me, Patti, how all of this, both of these religions and everything else you've been picking up along the way, how does this coincide with veganism? Is the veganism separate or is it inherent in your spirituality?
Definitely inherent. And it breaks my heart that the mainstream components of both religions don't embrace it the way I would hope they would. That's why I love Compassion Consortium. And that's why I started Dharma Voices for Animals. The Dharma is what the Buddha taught. It's like, I was going to say it's like the Torah, but that's a bad analogy. Anyway, so many Buddha's students and teachers talk about non-harming and ahimsa, but they don't really take that into their lives with what's on their plates. So Dharma Voices for Animals puts that front and center and says, if you're going to follow the Dharma, you really ought to consider how you live in terms of consumerism, eating and clothing and animal entertainment and all the other ways we abuse animals without realizing it's animal abuse. So in Judaism also, thank goodness for Jewish Veg. I think someone from Jewish Veg is on this call. It's just a marvelous organization where people who are Jewish can feel like they're heard and can feel like what's most important in acting like a Jew and being moral and being kind to animals is front and forward. I have to say, my introduction to Judaism that first touched my heart wasn't my Sunday school, it wasn't my family, it wasn't my bat mitzvah. It was when I went to summer camp. And at summer camp, we read a book called Camp Ki Tov. And that book had a little chapter about someone who found a bird who had fallen and wanted to save the bird. And it was my introduction to compassion through a Jewish lens. And anyway, that has lasted all these years.
I'm glad you went to summer camp. So tell us a little bit. I know we've had Dharma Voices for Animals as part of the consortium. We did a film night with this wonderful organization. And if anybody missed that and wants to see it, it is on the YouTube channel for Compassion Consortium. But Patti, tell us as a co-founder what Dharma Voices for Animals stands for.
We tried to bring the message of the Buddha into the lives of people in a broader sense, so that people who say that they're Buddhists can understand that that does include their food choices and it does include their lifestyle choices. And much to my surprise and delight, the organization has been very effective in Asia, of all places, where there are countries that are officially by charter are Buddhist countries. And we're in the Sunday schools now, and we're teaching. Dharma Voices for Animals is teaching people all through Thailand and Sri Lanka and other Buddhist countries about how and why to eat a vegan diet. It's very exciting to me. The numbers are just enormous. And we're trying also to get the Western American centers to understand that what we offer people who go on retreat really should reflect the teachings more in alignment, and more teachers are joining us. So that's very satisfying.
Can you explain just a little bit about what happened with Buddhism? My understanding is that the kind of Buddhism that went north took the vegetarian teachings with it, and the ones that went south largely didn't. What happened there?
I wish I understood that better, Victoria. I'm sorry, I don't. I know that Theravadan Buddhism is less into the vegan message than Mahayana Buddhism, but that's as far as my knowledge goes. I'm not a Buddhist scholar, and I really don't know how to answer that geographically about what happened and where the split was. I just know of those two schools, and there are many. The Mahayanans follow a vegan diet and the Theravadins don't. And what took off in the West at the two major centers on the East Coast and West Coast is Theravadan Buddhism.
We love our meat as Westerners. Okay, so let's talk a little bit, Patti, in a practical way, because I think it was Stephen Gaskin that said that if your religion doesn't work in the here and now, then it's not much of a religion. So you've been very successful in the world you're an author, and as a literary agent, you represented some of the most successful nonfiction authors, and in a few cases, the most successful nonfiction authors of the late 20th century. So you did the whole make it in the world, check that off the bucket list. So once you've done that, then what do you do with your life? What's left?
Oh, that's a big question. I think what's left is what was there all along, but you can put a spotlight on it and spend more energy on it, is trying to be kind and to model kindness, trying to be non-harming. And what I love about the precepts of Buddhism are that they try to make the world a safer place by making yourself a safe being for other beings. No creature should tremble in fear in your presence. Every creature on earth should find safety in your presence. And that's how I feel. You don't have to do anything in the world so much as be a model of that. And that's what I'm hearing now from all the wisest teachers regarding this horrible war that's going on in Europe. There's very little we can do to affect the path of that war, but the more of us who embody peace in our hearts, embody love in our hearts, embody non-harming in our lives, there are ripple effects to that. And the people we come in contact with and the people they come in contact with and so on, that peace and that love is contagious and spreads like a ripple. So I think I spend as much energy as I can on trying to be kind. That's the only way I can say it.
What a beautiful phrase. That's a tweet. I spend as much energy as I can trying to be kind. Thank you, Patti.
Thank you. Speaking of tweets, I want to apologize to everyone who's ever tried to get in touch with me by Facebook or LinkedIn or anything. As you can tell from having lost my video on this call, I am techno challenged. And so I do not do social media. And when I've tried to do it, I don't do it well. So I have, I think, 72 requests to be people's friends on Facebook that I've never answered because I don't know how. And I choose not to because I've heard Facebook and I really take a lot of time away from whatever else you want to do. And even though I joined LinkedIn at first, I haven't been active on it. So I have more than 20 requests there for people that want to be linked to me. And I don't know how to do it. So apologies to anyone who's on this call who's tried to contact me through social media. I'm just not good at it. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you have a newsletter, right?
I do write a monthly newsletter for Marin Veg. Anybody who wants it can simply write to marinveg.org is the website. Or you can write to me personally at eatplants@gmail.com. eatplants@gmail.com.
And I'm sure one of our founders who is good at tech will have that up on the chat. So Patti, I remember once when one of your own books was getting a whole lot of press and you were all over the media and you were running around being all, stellar. And I was in awe. And you said, "The dreams of my former life are coming true." And I don't think I have ever heard the spiritual life described so succinctly. So tell us what it is to have a former life and maybe a more uplifted life.
I think when I worked in publishing, I had a little bit of jealousy of all the authors that I worked with as an editor, or as before that as a publicist. I helped other people get their books out there in the world. And I had a little bit of jealousy. And when I finally wrote a book and it got some attention, I realized there was nothing to be jealous of. It's not about the fame. It's not about the attention. It's not about having a book. The message of the book is what I want to get out, not the fact of having written a book. And it doesn't matter if I wrote it or someone else wrote it. I would work to get that message out. So I was delighted to promote other people's books if the message was worthy. And then when I had my own, I was just another messenger, but it wasn't about the messenger, it's about the message. So that's how I see it. It's about getting the word out, not about whose mouth is getting the word out.
Like I said, the spiritual life succinctly described. So I know, Patti, that for ages, and we met in 1989, but I'm talking even way before that, you have been a social justice warrior. You've been out there for so many causes, but it seems that now, and for the last several decades, it's been veganism and animal rights that's your primary cause in this world. So why?
Well, that covers all the other social justice issues. I think veganism and animal rights really cover everything, because it's looking at the realization there is no other. If we can see animals as the same as us, we can see other people the same as us. We can see trees and squirrels and pigeons the same as us. Even when they make hay with make a mess of our laptop computers by landing on the lid too often. Anyway, I think veganism and animal rights just covers everything. It shows the connection, and connection is all there is. We can feel, when we recognize that connection, everything makes sense. Well, actually, nothing makes sense. When you feel the connection, the things happening in the world make no sense. So that's why I think working toward fostering that connection and strengthening that connection really is something worthwhile. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm just rattling on. But
you're just brilliant. You're brilliantly Buddhistic. I hope that we can pull out some of these quotes and put them all sorts of places. So, Patti, if you were in charge of how people should live, how should people live?
People should live, it sounds, I'm just repeating myself, with kindness at the heart of everything they do. That's all. I mean, it boils down to that. People should live without harming other beings, without causing, to the best of their ability, to think about how will this affect the creature I'm interacting with. And what the Buddha said that I loved is, you don't have to do it perfectly. You can ask yourself before you take action if it's going to harm anybody. You can ask yourself while you're doing it, is this harming anybody? And you can ask yourself afterwards, did this harm anybody? So you get 3 choices, 3 chances to make the right choice. And if it comes to, yes, it did harm somebody, you can show remorse and promise not to do it again. So I think just being conscious of the effect we have on other beings helps us make the wisest choice in any situation. So we should become more conscious of how we affect our own minds and other creatures.
So in our last minute, you were so integral to the whole kind of surge of self-help back in the 1980s and 90s that, that kind of spawned Oprah and Super Soul Sunday and all these things that we just accept now. And in that message, there was always this look out for number one, really take care of yourself. You can't take care of anybody else till you're taking care of yourself. And yet, as you explain Buddhist teachings and the way you're seeing life now, if we take care of others, we are taking care of ourselves. What do you do with that?
I think they're both true. I think it's still true you have to take care of yourself. I mean, you still need a spa day. You still need to take a warm bath and drink tea, give yourself a break. You still need to be kind to yourself and take care of yourself in order to take care of others. You will burn out if you only take care of others. So they're both true. I don't think there's a contradiction there.
Well, Patty, I think you are the least contradictory person I have ever met. And I just want to share with everybody that I met Patty at an American Vegan Society conference so far up in Northern California, it was almost Oregon in 1989. And there was all this scuttlebutt. There's a literary agent here. There's a literary agent here. It was sort of like Brad Pitt's over there and Angelina Jolie's over there. And so when I met Patty, I was expecting somebody who would be arrogant and dismissive. And instead, I met this amazing woman that you see before you today. And it was one of the best days of my life. So thank you, Patty, and passing it on, Reverend Erica.